Poul Thomsen, thank you for talking to us today. You have a very busy schedule, so we appreciate you fitting us in. First of all, can we talk about Europe and the European economy more broadly? You've had upgrades to your European growth forecast in many of the European nations. What's that down to? Is it down to the success of QE? There does seem to be a turnaround in some of the European countries.
So it's a number of factors. It's lower oil prices has clearly helped, and we also do think that the supportive stance of the ECB QE is a very important step. So that adds all up to to some upward revision in our forecast. At the same time, growth over the medium term is still somewhat moderate and points to crisis legacies that still needs to be overcome. Relatively high debt is certainly one of them. High unemployment, the need for structural reforms.
And one of the bright spots that Christine Lagarde has talked about is the UK economy, and she said that was doing relatively well at the moment. There are kind of question marks over the fiscal profile though in the future as to whether more austerity is really needed. What would you characterise the fund's position on?
So I think there has been some misunderstanding here. There's really no differences in the fund's forecast and the forecast of your government. The fact is that our projections are actually are based on a calendar year. Yours is based on a fiscal year. We are focusing on a more narrow concept of the general government. And once you adjust for these things, there are very, very little differences. There's very small differences relating to some growth assumption in the outer year. There's no story here really.
Yeah, I suppose it's just that the ringing endorsement on the one hand, you have pretty good growth in the UK, but you also have quite high fiscal and current account deficits, and often the fund gets worried about those kind of things.
I think there's no doubt that the UK economy has been doing well. I mean, growth, lower unemployment, improvement in the fiscal position. There's also no doubt what the challenges are going forward, and that is to be sure that one have the productivity growth that one has not seen so far. And I don't think there's any disagreement that this is a challenge.
Obviously, Greece is an economy which is very much in the spotlight at the moment. How would you characterise how the Greek economy is doing right now?
Well, we are in a somewhat difficult situation right now as far as Greece is concerned. We have a new government that clearly has been elected with a mandate to want to do things differently, and one has to accept that. And there's always flexibility inside these programs to achieve the objectives via a different policy mix. So we engage in that discussion with the new government. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But of course, the program has to meet its objectives of restoring fiscal and financial stability, restoring growth, job creation. So we have to find common grounds and policies that do that. And that discussion is going on. It has been somewhat slow, I must say, but it has gained some momentum in recent days, recent weeks. That's good, but it needs to gain some further momentum. Greece is in a relatively tight liquidity situation, and we need some early conclusion on these discussions.
What does relatively tight liquidity situation mean?
Well, we don't have the sort of kind of granular information that tells you how tight it is, but it's we know, everybody knows that there are significant debt servicing payments falling due starting in June, July, August, more than 10 billion. And clearly one would need to find a solution and an agreement before then. So that's why we really need to see some better momentum in these discussions. Yeah.
One of the payments that's due is to the IMF. There are a few payments due to the IMF. Would you rule out agreeing to any kind of delay in those payments?
Look, that has the countries pay the IMF on time. That has not been under discussion, and that is not
officially,
an option.
but there were unofficial conversations.
No, I think that it is well understood what the importance of the IMF in the system, and that is really important to keep current to the IMF.
In your press conference yesterday, you said that Grexit risk should not be underestimated. What did you mean by that?
Well, this would clearly have very severe implications for Greece. It certainly would have risks for Europe also, for sure. Now, of course, it would depend on the policy reaction, but nobody should take these things lightly. And now, let me emphasize, our assumption is that this will not happen. Our strong expectation is that the Greek government will do whatever it takes to prevent that, and has been very clear about that. So I think we need to
signs of that. I mean, like we're waiting still.
Well, as I said, the discussions have gained some momentum. We needed to gain further momentum, and we need to focus on this and not speculate about events that we don't see coming here. No, we need to focus on bringing these discussions to a successful conclusion. It's as I say, one should not belittle the implications of if that was to happen.
Both for Greece and the rest of the world.
It would certainly have severe implications for Greece, and again, Europe could not, and nobody would underestimate the risk to Europe.
Do you think that the fund itself has some kind of responsibility for the way that things have evolved now? I mean, you were involved in those first negotiations, that first bailout, and a lot of the time, a lot of people said, why weren't you restructuring the debt immediately? Why weren't you following traditional fund rules when it comes to these bailouts?
So I think that we have followed traditional fund rules. There was clearly a concern that this was what was it? It was 18 months after Lehman. I cannot remember. There was clearly concern about systemic implications, but then there was a strong determination, even by the Greek government, to try to avoid it. What later came as the PSI 18 months later. I think there has the criticism of the program has also been that it underestimated the negative impact on growth, and that's for sure it did. But what was not anticipated was, of course, the severe political crisis that emerged in Greece in 2011 and 2012 that caused shock after shock to the system. Confidence kept on going south. It's not surprising that output, it would have been surprising if we had not revised output. And again, look at this year. We have we had until 6 months ago relative robust output assumption, growth assumption this year. Clearly, we will have to revise them downward again because of the ongoing difficulties. So we are in this reality that things are turning out different than assumed, and we will have to adjust the program as we go along.
But it's disappointing because Greece was potentially that close to a real recovery. It looks really
for
good.
Sure,
earlier.
For sure. It's before 6 months ago, there was a clear sign of the recession bottoming out, and 2014 actually turned out a bit better than we had assumed actually. But it's also true that towards the end of the year, we started seeing signs that growth again was disappointing, and we will undoubtedly have to revise down our assumptions once again. So these difficulties in getting the agreement on a program, they are taking a toll on the economy, no doubt about it.
And they're frustrating for
it's frustrating of course.
Yeah, and do you have one kind of final message to those who are actually involved in those negotiations? Is time running out? How quickly do people need to move now? As I say,
there's clearly a need to bring this to an early conclusion, given the debt servicing payments that are coming up, and there is clearly a need to add momentum to this.
Okay, Poul Thomsen, thank you very much for talking to us.
You are very welcome. It's a pleasure.